Welcome to the final installment of our elected official series. We've really enjoyed the conversations we've been able to have with many of our elected officials throughout South County. We know it's important that we stay connected and be able to discuss back and forth some of the issues that are relevant to us and pertinent to our cities as well. So, this series has been a great and great view of how South County works. We've had over 250 people over the course of this session join live to really talk with their elected officials. Additionally, we've had I don't even know how many views online of our different formats, and we'll continue to push those out for you. And next year, we hope to do this in person so that we can get everybody up and running and back to how we usually operate. We'll always have some connectivity that we can do some webinar series, but it's always good to be in person together. So without further ado, I'm Jim O'Callaghan, President and CEO of the South County EDC. We are really eager to have with us Mayor Serge Dedina this evening. And I'm going to turn it over to our chair of the board, Willie Armas, who's been a great supporter and loves introducing our elected officials. So Willie, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you everybody for participating this evening on Cesar Chavez Day. Would like to welcome you to our final elected officials webinar for this year. And as Jim said, they've been very good, and Mayor Dedina will be providing us with some information that I'm looking forward to hearing this afternoon. So to introduce Mayor Serge Dedina, just wanted to give you a little bit of background. Mayor Serge Dedina is also co-founder and executive director of Wild Coast. Serge received the Surf Industry's Environmental Award, San Diego Zoological Society's Conservation Medal, as well as the California Coastal Commission's Coastal Hero Award in recognition of his conservation achievements. He was named as UCSD John Muir Fellow in 2013 and was honored as a 2016 Peter Benchley Hero of the Sea. Before co-founding Wild Coast back in 2000, Serge was the founding director of the Nature Conservancy's Baja California Sea of Cortez program, where he helped to initiate successful efforts to protect Loreto Bay National Park, Espiritu Santo Island Reserve, and Cabo Pulmo National Park. Mayor Dedina grew up in Imperial Beach, California, and spent his childhood helping to preserve the Tijuana Estuary as a national wildlife refuge, and has worked on water quality issues in the San Diego-Tijuana region since 1980. Mayor Dedina is an avid surfer, swimmer, and former state of California ocean lifeguard. He is the author of Saving the Gray Whale, a book based on the 3 years he lived in the gray whale lagoons of Baja California, wild sea, eco wars, and surf stories from the coast of California's, and Surfing the Border. Serge has a PhD geography, University of Texas at Austin, MS geography, University of Wisconsin, Madison, and a Bachelor of Arts, Political Science, University of California, San Diego. It's my privilege to introduce Mayor Dedina.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to see everybody, and yeah, really nice to have everybody here. Hopefully, I'm hoping that we're all transitioning back to everything back in person. It's so much nicer to be back in person. And with that, I just want to call out my colleagues. So I saw somewhere Jack Fisher from the city of Imperial Beach, our city council colleague, our city manager, Andy Hall, our colleague from the South Bay Union School District, Cheryl Quinones. I'm probably missing others, but what I wanted to do is just tell the story, the comeback story of Imperial Beach, right? And really for the South County Economic Development Council, really tried to understand what economic development, what development means in underserved areas, right? We're always talking about how do we make significant, impactful change, right? How do we sort of pivot? And I think Imperial Beach is a great story of collective effort, of people working together to fix up every corner of the city. So that the dependent variable, the focus becomes on improving the quality of life in every corner for every family in the city. And therefore, by doing that, by applying the broken windows theory and the unpaved alley theory and the fixed up the California American Water building theory. Thank you, Brian Bretto, and all your colleagues at Cal American Water. By doing everything, right? All the little things and the big things. By partnering with our school districts to pave alleys next to schools and get rid of chain link fences and tear down empty lots, you can make significant effort. You just don't have to do the big things. You have to do lots and lots of little things that don't cost a lot of money. That's the first thing, all that. Number two, when small cities don't have money, we don't have power, we don't have influence. So what do we have to do? You have to do what you did when you grew up in IB, and I think sure Jack and Cheryl understand this. You have to do lots of things with nothing. You have to figure out how to get things done, right? You have to stop making excuses, and you have to start focusing on the bottom line and having an impact, right? Eliminate the distractions and focus on actually doing things like filling in empty lots and paving streets and doing the basics. So let's do the Hollywood story. The story opens 8 years ago in the fall, right before I got elected, and the South County Economic Development Council had its annual, is it the fall fling? I don't even know what you guys call it, at the brand new Pier South Hotel and C-180 restaurant on the beach in Imperial Beach. A project that was done with previous mayors, Diane Rose and Jim Janney, former council members as well, and redevelopment, right? A project that involved Ashes Ronnie, one of the great hotel developers in San Diego, if not the country, and then the Cohn family. And so, putting a restaurant in, and our friend Ken Irvine, a great restaurateur, right? Quality names in San Diego, making that decision with a strong support of Imperial Beach and agencies and officials throughout California to invest in our city, right? $35 million. Immediately, it was a huge success. And I took over and took office in November of 2014 or December of 2014. And really what we did was systematically focus on the basics. And that's what I campaigned on, right? I didn't, thank you for reading the environmental history. I didn't get elected as an environmentalist or really have anything to do with my campaign about the environment, because really the focus was on the city I grew up on and understanding knocking on every door in Imperial Beach, what we need to work on. And it wasn't complicated stuff, it was simple stuff. And so, but throughout that, I just want to acknowledge that we've had some strong partners, right? South County Economic Development Council has always been there from the beginning to help us work on the things that mattered. Palm Avenue, taking over Palm Avenue. The state-owned Palm Avenue, before we took it over, and South County Economic Development Council helped us with this, you couldn't paint a crosswalk on Palm Avenue, on Highway 75. Couldn't be done. I got so sick of not seeing crosswalks in our city that he's guilty. I, quote, ordered the city to paint crosswalks without a permit. All right. And I said, if Caltrans wants to send me to jail for that, I'm more than willing to go, right? Because this is a third thing that I think is really important. The bureaucracies that cities in our state have created to somehow protect us have actually made things way worse for our residents, especially in underserved areas. Layers of bureaucracy in wealthy communities, it's not a problem for wealthy residents because they have teams of lawyers and lobbyists that can spend all their time charging huge amounts of money to fix the rules and get whatever projects they want. But in low-income communities, cities that don't have a lot of money like Imperial Beach, if you spend all your time fighting bureaucracy and applying for projects that take years and years, that just means you're not putting people to work to actually get things done in the areas that need the most investment. And so that's the other part of the story. The Imperial Beach, we really focused on having a city staff. I want to thank our city manager for this and our city council colleagues that focus on helping people get things done instead of saying no. Our only competitive advantage is by being small and nimble and telling developers and folks in our own city who want to, you know, add on an addition to their house, how can we help you? And Andy's been brilliant at sort of reinstating this message to our city staff. Your job is to help people get things done. Obviously, we got to play by the rules. We've got to fill out permits. Your job is to help them so they can build their house, add on an addition, so we can improve a street, or we can get someone to open a business. And I think you've seen that wholesale shift in the city of Imperial Beach, and developers and investors tell us all the time, thanks for making it much easier than other cities, right? Because otherwise they can invest anywhere. And so I think that's part of the story. But what I think the other thing, the final part of that story, I'm going to tell you the results, right, on what happened, was that there was nothing too small to do. Everything matters. So the chain link fence on the bay that's rotting, that I had cataloged in my head since I was 7 in 1971, get rid of it. I want to just call out Cal American Water, a perfect example. They moved from a really horrible building near our bayfront. It's a real dump. And I know Brian would admit, they know it, why they moved. And they moved into an old, kind of a decaying building that had been abandoned on, I think it was a former bank, on Palm Avenue, and took it over. And they fixed it up. They fixed up, and that whole area needed to be fixed up. Next to it was a gas station that had been abandoned with an empty lot behind it with razor wire and a chain link fence, garbage inside it, you know, just bringing down the whole neighborhood. Cal American Water did a tremendous job of fixing up that area. Then they put murals on the building. Thank you, Cal American Water. And then someone that Andy knew from the Imperial Valley bought, not Imperial Valley, I think it's Palm Desert, bought the gas station and was going to fix it up. And we met with them, and I was like, we need to clean up this lot that you own. It's like, yeah, 2 weeks. And I'm like, dude, you have 24 hours, right? You got to be relentless to make sure that you really focus on the details and that no one makes an excuse about why there are empty lots filled with trash in any city, right? Because once that starts happening, you have an entire city filled with empty lots and trash. And that was IB. And I'll tell you, so we get to the results. Our post office was the most damaged, decaying piece of junk building we had in our city. It was an embarrassment. And it has been like that since the 1970s when I was a kid. In fact, the post office looked exactly the same in 1977 as it did in 2021. The inside looked the same, which means it was junk. It was terrible. And I'm not sure why we let that happen for so long, but we finally reached out to Congressman Vargas, who helped us, and we said, to get a hold of the landlord, and we said, this building is unacceptable. We're going to start fining it because it's in such bad shape. In fact, the American flagpole was rusting and rotting, right? Like, so you have the American flag at the post office, US Post Office, with an ugly rotting pole. A new management company took over, and we said very clearly, this needs to be fixed up, and they did. AT&T, the same thing. The AT&T building was an embarrassment. One of the biggest buildings in our city, at the entrance to our city. It only took 4 years, but they put some murals on it, right? They fixed it up. So it was a collective effort to really turn things around, because I just want to, part of that story is everything that you guys take for granted in your cities, we didn't have. We didn't have a grocery store. We didn't have a Parks and Rec department. We didn't have a swimming pool. We didn't have tennis courts. We didn't have a major hotel. We didn't have a major anchor business or restaurant on our beachfront, right? Fast forward 8 years. Again, thanks to the support of South County Economic Development Council, the Port of San Diego, the County of San Diego, the State of California, the United States Navy. I'm missing City of San Diego, City of Chula Vista, City of National City, Sandag, the federal government, you name it, collectively working to fix things up. And then, you know, some of the top entrepreneurs and investors and private sector leaders in San Diego, the Morton family with the Brigantine, the Cohn family with C-180 and Ken Irvine, Asher Swanee at C-180, the Sudburys at 9th and Palm with their wildly successful shopping center. We didn't have a Starbucks, now we have one, right? So we did all those things. Fast forward 8 years. Lowest crime rate of any county of any beach city in the county. Lowest crime rate. lower crime rate than Coronado. We spend half the money in law enforcement, which our sheriffs love to say. Greatest period of job creation and economic investment in the city's history. By far, not even close. Greatest state of city resources in the city's history, right? Greatest period of street paving and alley paving in the city's history. Greatest period of park investment and park playground equipment, park equipment in the city's history. And then finally, rebooting our Parks and Rec department, working with the Sweetwater School District and our state legislature to get money for a swimming pool, which will be open, I think, early next year, right, that we'll have access to. So really transforming the city, but it was a block by block, street by street, project by project approach, with an attitude that everything matters, focus on really discrete projects, don't get distracted by drama, right? And really focus on doing things that improve the quality of life for all in every corner of the city, that everyone's the same, and really focus on the areas that have been ignored for 60 years, the areas without alleys, without crosswalks, areas that the neighborhood that I grew up on. So I'll end there, and then just with a quote, not a quote, but just a kind of a little minor discussion on the water quality. This all despite the fact that we had the worst era of ocean pollution and beach closures in our city's history. That despite all the collective effort of all our partners, including this body, to work on getting funding, significant funding, and a plan in place on the part of the federal government to deal with the Tijuana River issue over the last 3 years, the sewage problem has actually astronomically gotten worse by a 10-fold or 100-fold, to the point where basically every other weekend the beach is closed. And we hope to deal with that. But so there's a lot more in store. For the rest of the year, we're really focused on getting our Parks and Rec department going. We passed a 1-cent sales tax initiative, thanks to our city manager and lots of others. I think it was passed by 70% of the residents, to support things like Parks and Rec and our public safety. Number two, we opened our first dispensary, just opened, I think it was last week on the weekend. But Annie Hall and our city staff negotiated a voluntary tax. From that should produce over $1 million a year in revenue for Parks and Rec. Regardless of how you feel about marijuana, the reality is our residents voted for it overwhelmingly. So we have 1 dispensary so far. So with that, I will stop. And I know, Jim, you have questions, but this is a good story. And it shows that in 4 square miles, a city that was largely forgotten, you can make a difference. That little things matter, like clean streets matter, right? That public safety matters the most. That block by block economic development and investment makes a big difference. And then finally, I'll end here. All of you who have money and like to invest, we haven't even started, we still have much more to do, but we just had the Salty Frog that was closed for a while, reopen. Lane Bobian, he's gonna get a permit to reopen. Lane Bobian, an Olympic silver medalist from Coronado, had bought that, and he is going to open it. We had him over in 70 letters to support, including from our Chamber of Commerce for that. And so it was really nice to see the community coalesce around positive things. And I think that's the thing we're gonna focus on, at least during my last year in tenure, is positive things that actually make a difference for our community that we can get around, that will have lasting impact. So I'll end there, Jim. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dzina. It is a great story, and we're glad to be able to share it out. We're going to open up for some questions for the audience. I know I have Dave has his hand raised. If you have a question as you go, please raise your hand, add it to the chat if you'd like me to ask it on your behalf. Otherwise, we'll take some questions we had already fielded. So Dave, if you'd like to take it away, feel free.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jim. And thanks, Serge, for doing this. This is really good to hear from you again. So my question is regarding the $300,000 that's been sitting unused for 3 years now from the state and the feds on trying to get a project for the Tijuana River. Is there any movement, or do you see or hear of any decisions that are coming down the road anytime soon to get at least one project started?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's 300 million, not 300,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. 300 million. Sorry about that.
So first, that's super important. And number two, we're all super frustrated and impatient about how slow things have gotten. On the other hand, it was interesting to see Senator Perdue and Feinstein write a letter to the San Diego Union Tribune today, if you hadn't seen that, sort of like talking about how they're moving forward. So the process is in place. We've identified a plan. They're looking at the environmental review for that. In the meantime, to give credit to the EPA and the Mexican government, they've been focusing on a lot of smaller projects in Tijuana that don't take away from that 300 million. So that's good. Second, the International Boundary Water Commission is under new leadership. Maria Elena Hiner, a lot of us advocated to get her appointed as a new IBWC agency. They're the agency that actually manages border waste or stormwater infrastructure. They've really changed their approach. So they're really dealing with all these nonstop infrastructure breakdowns that release sewage into the Tijuana River Valley from the side canyons and from the channel. And to work with Mexico to get them fixed, and then to be very transparent about what's happening, which is a little scary because I think, in January and February alone, we had more than 2 billion gallons of sewage polluted water go into the ocean and, resulted in massive beach closures. So, we're making progress on the policy and planning front, but in the meantime, just exponentially, sewage infrastructure breakdowns in Tijuana have just gotten way worse, right? And so, I'll end there, but I'm confident that we will address this problem. But it's like if the wheat harvest is, we'll go back to the wheat harvest. I was joking about the wheat harvest before, but if the wheat harvest is failing and it's a drought, and then you hear from 3 or 5 years, maybe there might be some rain, and you'll be able to grow some food. It doesn't really help that much. So I think for our residents, and especially in Coronado as well, Silver Strand's been closed at record numbers of days. Closures, beach closure signs in front of the Hotel Del during holiday weekends. It's been really frustrating and really painful. So we'll continue to push on that. And, it's going to require a lot more effort to make that happen. And on that, one thing, what's good about the IBWC is they recognize that little things make a big difference. Fixing a dike, or a wastewater problem in a side canyon in the river valley, fixing that spill could have a big impact on reducing beach closures because every spill may close the beach for more than a week. Right. And so you start subtracting out those spills that you fix that are eliminated, and you get a lot more days on the beach.
Thank you for that. Brian has his hand raised.
Hey, Brian. Still can't hear you.
Yeah. There we go.
How about now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say it's good to see you again, Mayor Dedina. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your leadership. You called out California American Water and the work that we've done. I don't think us moving from the small building that we were on previously on 10th to the building that we're in now wouldn't have happened without the leadership of you, the council, and the city. So and your staff. And we look forward to continuing to work with your staff and the city going forward. Do you have any insights, or could you provide the group with some additional things that you think that the city should we could continue to work on with the city to continue the growth and the positive movement going forward in the city?
Yeah, look, there's so much more to do, and I've said this to Mayor Gloria and my council colleagues in San Diego. Let's not fight about housing in Claremont Mesa. Let's get housing built on Palm Avenue, right? Like if you start looking at how underdeveloped Palm Avenue is in Imperial Beach and San Diego, there's so much more we could do to fill in empty lots, especially Brian around your building. And we've got grant from Caltrans to fix up the area of Palm that you're at. And so, there's just so much more we can do and, to really focus on that corridor. I think MTS and the city of San Diego working together to put the high density housing at the Palm Avenue trolley station is a great start. And now we can move westward. And, the reality is on our beachfront or Seacoast Drive, we still have empty lots. It's crazy that, in a Southern California beach community, maybe it may be us in Oceanside that still have empty lots on a commercial thoroughfare, on a coastal avenue, right? So a lot more to do, a lot more basic things to do, but, I'm confident that, the economy is going to turn around and we can get it done. And then the second part of that is obviously housing has been a real challenge. We have a hard time attracting housing funding. And then number two, because the scale is a lot less in Imperial Beach to do versus National City or San Diego, it's just a lot harder to attract those development dollars. So that's something we have to really work on. And we've been unsuccessful in getting, low-income housing and affordable housing built, despite having projects ready to go.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you. And that is actually one of the questions I was going to talk about. How could we better partner as a community to help with, obviously, RHNA numbers for a city with a small footprint is very hard to meet. But there are a number of, we brought together Andy and a couple of our board members recently. What are projects that are ready to go or that you could share with us that we might be able to help source, partners for you on?
Yeah, so we had great question. And again, we can all go at length about our over bureaucratic state government, but the super slow process and this that it takes and the fights over housing and basically I'm gonna by alienated people in the governor's office. I don't really care about it. They were mad at me for saying that the RHNA process is meaningless. We've been assigned numbers we can't fill. There's no money to actually build housing, and I'm begging to call the governor's office to beg for, to invest in housing. So I think the thing that we need to do is just build housing where people want it and really make it, waive CEQA, et cetera, to get housing built. I think that's happening, but we've got to get that money out a lot quicker to housing. I think we have a project at the old United Methodist Church, which is now the Imperial Beach Neighborhood Center, right near 5th and Palm. And I think they're working with Wakeland Development for a great, I think it's 50 to 60 units of senior housing. It's an absolutely fantastic project that would be a community center as well. So we went on the phone begging our state elected officials and the governor's office for support for the next round of funding. So I think that's a great example of one project we have ready to go. And then Ginger Hinsky, one of our great affordable housing developers in San Diego that's already done a project in Imperial Beach. We had another empty lot we bought right at 5th and Palm. To build, I think it was like 16 units or something like that of affordable housing, and never could make that project work. So we've got 2 projects ready to go, but plenty of empty lots along Palm Avenue where we could, meet our zoning code and meet those artificial, for me, meaningless RHNA numbers and start building housing for people who need it.
Thanks for that. Derek, I know you had your hand raised. I don't know if you still had a question or if we answered it. So.
Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Collier. I'm with the 6 Career Centers of San Diego County. Can you hear me?
Yep.
And I definitely want to be respectful of the time. We have OJT proceeds available for on-the-job training for businesses to skill those that have 0 skills and upskill those current workers that just want to get more skills. What's the best way for us to connect with businesses and pay them to train?
Well, I think we have our Chamber of Commerce on the line, but you can either go on the city website and find our city manager, Andy Hall, or me. It's mayor@imperialbeachca.gov, and we can definitely make sure we get that information out to our business community. Thank you.
And I also want to be respectful of time. I don't know if you have a couple more moments for a few more questions, or if you're.
Yeah, it's good. Sure.
Perfect. So if there are other questions, please add them. One of the questions we had is, hopefully we're coming through the other side of this pandemic and we can all kind of get back to normal. Through this process, the city has changed its operations and some of the programs and offerings. What of those changes do you see moving forward, and how has it been positive with interacting with residents, businesses, and what do you look forward to seeing go forward?
Well, look, first I want to just thank, and I see Valerie also as our Chamber of Commerce is on the line. Thanks, Valerie. And Chamber of Commerce has been great in really supporting this process. Look, I think it was, and with the Chamber and others, one thing I realized, it was that sort of just peer-to-peer and then, city to business contact, personal contact. It's like, what do you need, right? What do you need to be successful? I think that was really, eye-opening. And we saw a lot of businesses, disappear, but others got stronger, right? And we had a lot of new businesses that opened. So I think it gives a lot of insight into what people need to be resilient and to live in a healthy community. It's clear to me that what emerges, community activities for Parks and Rec. It was very clear to me that we all saw that, right? We just left home and went to the beach, the bay, and our parks, right, during this pandemic. And that's still the case. And so I think really it was during the pandemic for me just coalesced this, not idea, but the plan and sort of purpose to really make sure that we have viable Parks and Rec programming. And we just hired Shannon Bullock, who is an absolutely phenomenal our first Parks and Rec director, new Parks and Rec director. And the idea is programming for every, every age level, every type of activity, whether it's chess or ballet or bocce ball or whatever our seniors need. Not just seniors, right? But and it's more than just traditional Parks and Rec. So that, to me, that's, I think what really came out of that, and that's something our council and our residents have really coalesced around. And we use the federal investment money or the relief money, pandemic relief money, to really invest in we'll be opening a new community center. We did not have a community center in Imperial Beach. It was an embarrassment. So we took over an adult education center at 3rd and Palm that was had been unused by the Sweetwater School District that we'd originally given them. So that was great. And thanks to our Sweetwater partners for that. We've invested in all our parks. We're helping improve our senior center. We'll be opening that swimming pool. So we see a lot of significant change, things that every other city take for granted. And then I think as our city manager said, you can't afford to pay, we're not going to charge it. And this is something that's really important to me, having grown up in a no-income, perpetually broke immigrant family near 13th Street, Imperial Beach, back in the 70s, when no one had any money in the South Bay. I did well in my life because I had access to the Parks and Rec. I was able to take swimming lessons and become a lifeguard in Imperial Beach in the state that paid for UCSD when you could afford to work in the summer and pay for it. So all those things I did because I received the benefits of a great public education, great public Parks and Rec department, great community programs and access to, arguably the best public university system in the world. So, we didn't make sure all our kids in IB and families have access to great quality of life. You don't have to live in a wealthy beach city to have access to tennis courts and swimming pools and great parks and programming that really makes a difference in people's lives. And I say that having accessed all those resources also in Chula Vista, National City, in San Diego growing up. If you're a kid in IB, you're going to all the rec centers, you're going to all the swimming pools, your brother plays soccer at the soccer field somewhere else, right? Those are really important resources for families in the South Bay.
It's an amazing story. Being able to grow up here and see how things have changed and see how it's grown and developed. And as you started out with the story of how we got here, maybe in your closing comments, if you could give us kind of the vision going forward, where you see Imperial Beach, into the future. And we thank you for your long tenure and commitment to the city. But how does that building block help move us to the next level? So.
Well, look, with the first, it's been a remarkable, really rewarding 8 years. And I really enjoyed it, and the collective team effort, right? It's been just really wonderful and really inspiring, and to see people do their best to really make a difference. Everyone wants to help do something positive. So where are we going? Well, there's so much more to do, whether it's on our bayfront, and our former council member Lori Bragg had a wonderful vision for our bayfront to make it more like what you see in Monterey with that coastal walk. There's so much more we could do that with the Coastal Conservancy and Fish and Wildlife Service and the port. I think you'll see that happening. Along with the convention center is going to open Chula Vista. You're going to see just a detonation and just change in literally the South Bay, the actually bayfront, right? So I think that's only positive in terms of economic development and resources available to our city. But I want to, and the beaches will be open, all the time. We are going to fix that sewage problem, and you're just going to see, I think, a continued investment in improving the quality of life for our residents. I think that's what you're going to see is a vibrant beach community, really where residents have access to all kinds of great resources, and we're going to make it fun for everybody. And I think if you grew up in IB, you're proud of the fact that all your friends in National City and Chula Vista and San Diego and El Cajon want to hang out in the People's Beach, right? It's the down home beach because it's a really cool, fun, friendly place. And I'm really proud of the fact that we've, as a community, have really worked on those things that make it accessible for everyone, and a nice place just to hang out. And it wasn't like that when I was a kid. A lot of people like to rap, sort of go on about how wonderful it was in the 70s. It wasn't safe at the beach in the 70s, but it is now. And I'm really proud of that.
Well, again, I really want to thank you for taking the time today to share the story of Imperial Beach, but also just for the incredible service and the groundwork you've laid for the future of Imperial Beach. So thank you for that. And also on a personal note, for being one of the first people that reached out to me when I joined here, and really, your commitment to the region as a whole. So thank you for that. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And we've enjoyed having this time with all of our elected officials over the past 2 months. If there are questions that you didn't get to ask today, please share them with me. I will get them to Mayor Dedina, who I know will be glad to answer them and get back to you as soon as possible. But thank you on behalf of the South County EDC. Thank you, Mayor Dedina.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Great, thanks.